All right, we are doing this, and oh, I forgot the microphone. Oh, whatever. I guess I'll just. Should I grab it? I'll grab it. Let me pause it real quick. Right here. I forget it. I'll come back into that later. Anyways, we're not doing it with the microphone because I forgot it, but we've got the dual camera set up right now. If there was a mirror, I would show you, but there isn't one anywhere, so. We are going to make vegan cinnamon rolls tonight, and I'm actually going to make two versions, and we're doing a cook-along. So some of you that are watching you guys get the email for Cat Chef Kitchen, and you can get that if you go to catchefkitchen.com and find out about these cook-alongs where I send out the list of recipes and list of ingredients and any prep that you have to do so that we can do this live cooking along. And I've got another camera going for the first time that is also recording to upload this to YouTube, so hopefully we can get a higher quality video. Hence why I was looking for the microphone earlier on, but we'll do it next time, I guess. Anyways, I'm going to be making two versions of this tonight. So some of you prepped already, and you have your dough, which I gave the ingredients for in the email. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another version of this right now. So those of you that started this, just hang tight for about 5 minutes while I make, or 10 minutes while I make the other version of this for anyone that didn't make this yet. And then we'll jump into making the cinnamon rolls. So, first thing I'm going to need is my recipe, which I've got right here. And I'm going to show you guys how to make the dough first using baking powder. So there's two ways to make these. This was using instant yeast or active dry yeast. And the other way I'm going to make these is with baking powder. And at the end of this, I've never done a side-by-side comparison. I'm going to have an answer for which is better. So if we can make these with baking powder, that's awesome, because then they don't need to be made that far in advance. So first thing we're going to need to do to make this dough is get 2 cups of flour, which I normally store in the freezer, but we just ran out today, so I've got this huge, giant 10-pound bag of flour. I'm using all-purpose flour here, wheat flour. You do need to use a wheat flour for these. You might be able to get away with like a gluten-free flour that's specifically gluten-free. But these are going to be like the lightest, fluffiest ones, I think, if you make it with all-purpose flour. If you use whole wheat flour, they're going to be more dense because the whole wheatness of it interferes with the development of gluten, which is what makes the dough kind of rise and become spongy.
Your dad said he liked our Lego man. Shavasana.
Oh yeah, he's hanging out over there. Alright. So, let's do 2 cups. I'm going to start with just my dry ingredients and distribute those and mix those evenly first. So 1 cup. And 2 cups of flour. So if you haven't seen this before, what I do on Cat Chef Kitchen is I'm not a chef at all, but I do like to make food, and I want to make cooking easier for everyone and show you how easy it is to make really good food. And it's also plant-based food that doesn't use dairy or meat. So I'm going to take this, throw it in the freezer. If I say anything that's wrong, please feel free to correct me at any point. But I try to do at least some research beforehand because I don't want to mislead anyone. Next, what I'm going to do is turn on the oven because probably a good idea to preheat that. And it's wintertime right now. We're we are, so I'm going to preheat this to 350 degrees. Some ovens have a bake setting and some have a convection setting. For these, so the difference between those two is convection blows air as the oven's on. Regular baking is just the heat. There's not like a fan blowing air. And the convection will cook food faster because it's blowing hot air. So the heat is transferred to the food more quickly, basically. For these, I would say if you have the option, just leave it as regular bake. I think that a slower rise will help prevent it from overcooking on the outside, so keeping it more tender overall. Otherwise, it might overcook on the outside before the inside is fully cooked. 2 cups of flour. Next, I'm going to add baking powder, and there's a ratio for baking powder that I've seen people suggest. I can't remember if it's like a teaspoon. I have to look this up. I totally forgot. We're gonna go over to my computer. And normally I would look this up on my phone, but my phone's being used to do the live streaming. So, teaspoon to, not teaspoon, baking powder, ratio flour, and 1 to 2 teaspoons per cup of flour. I was gonna guess like 1 or 2 teaspoons for the 2 cups, so I'll just go with 2 teaspoons for a cup. But a serving of this is 1/8 of a teaspoon, so I like to also keep it kind of proportional in that regard, if that makes any sense. This is very not scientific. Again, I like to show you guys how I actually think, too, when I'm doing recipes.
The why.
The why. This one's a teaspoon. I'm going to do 1.5 teaspoons. Actually, yeah, I'll do 1.5 teaspoons. I don't want to add too much baking powder. I don't know the health, I don't think there's any health like drawbacks to it, but it's just, yeah, I don't know if there's any like health drawbacks if you add too much. Baking powder is being used instead of baking soda because baking soda requires an acid to be added to the dough in order to react. Baking powder is basically baking soda plus an acid already inside it. So we've got our baking powder in there. Next I'm going to add some salt. About 1/8 of a teaspoon. I don't add too much salt into these because the more salt you add, the more sugar you're going to have to add to balance it out. And that's why I did this over the sink. And this is, I don't have an 1/8 teaspoon measurement, so I'm just going to do about half of this 1/4 teaspoon. You could probably even leave the salt out of these. It's probably not super essential, but I think it does add a little bit something to make them a little bit better. That is it for the dry ingredients. Next, I'm going to melt 1/4 cup of coconut oil and get 2 tablespoons of syrup. Now the coconut oil in the dough is going to kind of make this more tender and soft and help these last a little longer. A bread that doesn't have oil in it is going to stale a lot more quickly, and it's not going to be as tender. So like if you're going for like a hearty bread, like a rustic style bread, you usually don't put any oil in it. But if you want like a pizza dough or something that's going to be softer and more moist, you'd want to add an oil. And it'll also leave it soft at room temperature for longer. Never refrigerate bread. Only freeze it if you need it to last longer, because refrigeration increases the rate of staling the bread. Staling happens most readily at the temperatures inside of a fridge at like 40 something degrees or so. I don't want this to get too hot. I just basically want this to melt. And if you were doing the yeast version of this, it was important to keep this below a certain temperature because you don't want to start cooking the dough. You don't want to just set this on high heat and then throw it into your dry ingredients because then it'll like actually fry some of your flour and whatnot. So I get it about warm until the majority is melted away there, and then I'll just let it sit and take care of the rest of the ingredients as I do this. So I'm going to toss these dry ingredients just to better distribute them before we start adding the wet. And then I'm going to add some 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, which is already opened in the fridge. It's going to also, I think, help make the dough a little bit softer, having sugar in your dough. And this won't make them overly sweet because we're going to have a lot of syrup in the filling for these cinnamon rolls. Maple syrup comes from the hard maple tree, which is also the same tree that skateboards come from and baseball bats, if you have a maple baseball bat. Add some of this. And I'm going to add some water, and I think what I had established was that it's about 5 or 6 tablespoons of water, so we're going to put that to the test right now with my quarter cup measurement. Start with a quarter cup of water. And then add a tablespoon. Put us at 5 tablespoons and see what that does to start. So there's 4 tablespoons in a quarter cup, I believe. That was the oven, just saying it's ready. I'm not, but it's just going to hang out there. It's a nice little way to heat the house while it's cold here. It does get cold in San Diego, if anyone's wondering.
How cold?
How cold? It gets to about... What has it been getting to? What's it been getting to at night? Like low 40s? And that's more towards the coast. Definitely it gets into the 30s when you go more inland, close to the desert. Desert's not always hot. At night it gets very cold. So this was perfect. This was 5 tablespoons of water. And you can see it's kind of coming apart a little bit, but I think this is good enough. We want to be able to roll this dough out. I don't want to overmix it though, because I don't want this to be too big and airy and fluffy. I want it to be kind of dense because we don't want to have these big bubbles in it. Okay. Now we can make the filling. So now we're caught up. Thank you for holding it. It was about 15 minutes for me to do that, a little bit more than 5 or 10 minutes. But anyways, if you were doing this with the yeast, you would do the exact same thing I just did. Set in a bowl, get a towel like this, wet with really hot water, and cover the bowl. And just let it sit overnight, about a day, like overnight to 24 hours. It doesn't rise that much. And I think that's because of the coconut oil that's in there that prevents it from, because there's so much coconut oil to flour. I think that's what kind of prevents it from being super risen. But here's our 2. This one, you can see it's a little bit larger than that one. It could also be an optical illusion because this bowl is bigger. But we're just gonna go with that one smaller. I could add food coloring to these to like differentiate them, but I don't like to add unnatural food coloring to things. Let's get our filling ready. Okay. For the filling, you're gonna need a half cup of melted, just kidding. You're gonna need a half cup of maple syrup. You're going to need, the number on here is very unclear. It looks like 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. 2 to 3 tablespoons of coconut oil.
This little pink sticky note recipe.
Yes. All of our recipes are somewhere in here. And sticky notes
Very official.
on the back of receipts. And just all over the place. Here's some more sticky note ones. This one, you don't even know what it is. This is just a list of ingredients. It's just a mystery recipe. So when you're like, you want to make something, you're not sure what you want to make, you make something that you don't have a label for, and you get a surprise. That's how you keep it interesting in the kitchen. I'm going to say that's 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. This is the whole point of this. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. Like, it's just food. It's hard to screw it up, and it's easy to fix things. A teaspoon of vanilla and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Okay. I'm going to get my mixing bowl. So I'm going to double this just because I'm making 2 batches. So if anyone's in San Diego and wants to come over for cinnamon rolls, please come. We don't need this many cinnamon rolls. Pig's out there, he's gonna get some.
Yes.
Our neighbor's name is Pig, for those of you that haven't watched this before. He's awesome. That is his name. So a half cup of maple syrup. Again, I'm doubling it, so I'm making a full cup.
Hi, Mom and Joy.
So we got 1 cup of maple syrup. Or a half cup for you. Again, half cup of maple syrup for you. You can use other things too. You could probably use honey or agave or regular sugar. It's really your call. Next, we're going to need to add 2 tablespoons of melted coconut oil. Or at least softened coconut oil. I'm going to melt it because as soon as I add it to this cold syrup, because this was in the fridge, it's going to harden. And we want to be able to like spread this really well. So I'm going to do my best to make it spreadable. 2 tablespoons. Again, I'm doubling this, so I'm going to add 1/4 cup. Coconut oil can be so tricky sometimes. It's so good. This is our butter substitute. You could probably use a vegan butter too. This doesn't actually add that much coconut flavor, I don't think. Autumn doesn't think so either. So if you're concerned about the coconut taste, don't worry about it. Let that go. Do its thing there. One teaspoon of vanilla for you. It's gonna be 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. So let's go with the vanilla. Add 1 teaspoon. Measure it not over, like maybe measure it over anywhere else other than the bowl. So I'm gonna just measure it over this thing. That's just in case you overspill. 1. And then I'm doubling the recipe because I got 2 of these going on. 2. Next, we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And I can be a little like casual with this. I'll just like shake it right over it. I mean, if you want to dip your spoon in there, your teaspoon in there, you can do that. but I don't mind a little extra cinnamon in my cinnamon rolls. Really challenging to get it out of the shaker though. I don't recommend doing that. Nice cinnamon rolls. I think the recipe I used as a reference called for more cinnamon in it. So if you really like cinnamon and that's your jam, go ahead and add a little extra for yourself. But you can always add more on top. So that's my suggestion. You always add more later of the cinnamon. And then we're gonna add our coconut oil. I feel like I'm going super fast right now. When I look at the clock, it reminds me that I'm not. Everything feels sped up. I think I'm just hungry for real dinner. We haven't done that yet. I'm gonna add this in. So that was our 2 tablespoons of softened or melted coconut oil. And then just go ahead and stir the whole thing up. And it just smells awesome right now as the cinnamon kind of starts to, like, you'll get some whiffs of cinnamon coming your way.
Bo, who's GMA3?
That is Jerry.
He's following along.
Awesome. I love it. Alright, so this is going to be our mixture. And now we're getting to the fun part. And when things get fun, you gotta widen your stance and get more stable because you don't know what the fun's gonna bring your way. So maximize your stability for the fun. We're gonna need flour for our surface. So you're gonna need a surface that you can roll this out on. A pretty decent sized surface is good. You're also gonna need a baking pan like this. If you don't have one of these, that's okay. You could just throw them in the oven, and whatever you got, that's oven safe. And you can let us know how that goes.
What about like a bread tin?
A bread tin?
Like a bread baking size.
What's the difference between that and
Like
this?
it's like half that size.
Sure, why not? That works. I don't think you'll have enough room though in a bread baking tin. Like this thing. I don't think this might be big enough actually, but they'll just be like massive rolls going on. I don't know. There is an art to like picking, like the vessel does actually matter. It will cook differently. I don't think they'll be bad though, basically. They're just gonna cook a little differently. Usually if you want to do the thing at the end where you have like the, like where you like pull it out of the oven and you put it on display and then you pour the icing all over it. That works best in one of these. When you have like the flat thing, the icing goes everywhere and it's not that cohesive. It's not as good. So dust your surface with flour to prevent any stickiness from going on. Can't have any of that sticky situations. And
Brock, I think it is an 8-inch square pan.
this is probably 8 inches. I don't have any 8-inch things around. We have a tape measure somewhere. When you live in a small apartment, everything's within a reach. An arm's reach. We've got, this is about a 9-inch baking pan. It's a 9, you know, but at the bottom it's an 8. It's got some taper to it. The taper draft is helpful for removing it from the pan, so it's tapered outward.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah.
Both smart. Some engineer did that.
Some engineer did. It looks, what is it, like a 3-degree?
Jerry says they're gonna cook theirs in a shoebox.
Perfect. Just have the fire extinguisher on hand and make sure it was a clean shoebox. Okay. I am now going to roll out the dough, and the way we do this is you're basically gonna roll it out into like a big square type deal shape. As square as you can get. It doesn't have to be perfectly square. It's really sideless actually. There are no corners. There used to be a rolling pin in one of these drawers.
Yeah, it belongs there.
Oh, there it is. It's just way in the back.
It rolled.
That's the issue with the baking pins. If you don't have a surface big enough, if you're doing this in a small apartment or something, you can like just do half at a time. We're going for whole. I actually did it half at a time all my previous times, so this will be interesting because I haven't done it like this yet. And we're gonna roll it out to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. If you want to maximize on the ooey gooey delicious filling, you could roll it thinner, like 1/8 of an inch, because then you can just like get more swirls in your cinnamon rolls. So if you're going for that, for maximization of the swirlization, you want to go as thin as possible, because that increases the surface area. Get these hairs out of there.
No.
That increases the surface area of the dough, which is going to give us more surface for our filling. So I might go a little thinner than, I might try and maximize that as well. And you could see, it's kind of a poor, if I was getting graded on my ability to create a square right now, this would not pass. This would not be in the dictionary under square. But it's good enough, and that's what we do in Cat Chef Kitchen. We just go good enough. And it usually turns out pretty awesome, because if you focus on the non-important things, then it doesn't come out as good. But if you really focus on the most important things, then it comes out awesome. Let's see. I'm not going hardcore. I'm not measuring this, but we got this shape. It's kind of more rectangular, actually. I misspoke. It should be more of a rectangle than a square. You know, kind of like the shape of a Pac-Man ghost if you hold it that way. So that's kind of the shape we're going for, hopefully. Now we are going to, I'm going to split this in half so I can make sure I really do make it fair between the two competing doughs I've got going on here. So let's get my bowls here. We got 2 bowls. So, we're going to use some eyeballing it to get it just right. Half and half. Here we go. Okay. We got our 2 bowls. Also, you can taste this right now too. If you don't have too much, because it's probably pretty intense. It tastes like liquid cinnamon roll, like extract. This is, if you can bottle up cinnamon roll and like put it like in a little jar like this, it would taste like that.
Is that dinner?
This is probably gonna be our dinner. And this is gonna get messy, so get ready for the mess. If you want, you can try and chill this a little bit, because you can see there's a lot of liquid going on right now. The viscosity is very low, meaning that it's like very portable. It's not like a thick toothpastey type substance, so it's gonna get everywhere. It's gonna get messy, but that's why this is cooking. We make a mess, and you're just gonna spread this completely over these surfaces. And you can see it's going. Mine's rolling off. I'm gonna try and salvage some of that, but just spread it all over. You can even, the nice thing about having some of this flour here, the flour can kind of absorb it. This is not the best tool for this. I'm learning. Realized a bit late.
Spatula? One of these?
One of those, perhaps. just, yeah, there we go. Yeah, if you need it a little thicker, you can just mix in some of that flour that you've got dusted on your surface there. And that'll help thicken it up a little bit. Alrighty, it is fun.
Whoever said you can't play with your food never saw this show.
They never saw Cat Chef Kitchen. I need to incorporate more laser pointers into this show. Cats love laser pointers. Okay, now we're gonna roll this out. Roll this up, I mean. Just like this. So start up the long end to long end. And we're rolling decently tight. I'm not like trying to like tuck this in, like, but I'm definitely, because if you roll too tight, it's just gonna squeeze the filling out. And if you roll too loose, it's not like a tight little cinnamon roll knot. So we want to roll it so it is rolled up on itself, but don't like force it. You don't need to try and prove, you're not trying to prove anything to the cinnamon roll.
Kind of like a big heavy rug.
It's kind of like a big heavy rug. All right, now I'm gonna grease this pan that I got going over here, which I've already kind of All right, so I use coconut oil to just grease it up, butter it up nice and good. This is gonna prevent it from sticking.
Your dad says a little messy. Brock says a lot messy.
You haven't seen anything. We're just containing it all to this little thing. Board. And next, we're going to cut these. And the size that you cut these determines the height of your cinnamon roll. Actually, it'll expand to be a little bit bigger. But you can... I don't really measure. I just kind of go by like that big. Like, I cut them about an inch, I guess I'd say. And then you stack them swirl side like that. Stack them swirl side.
So inch wide.
So about an inch wide. But it's totally up to you what you want to... It'll only really affect probably the cooking time. And I'm just kind of laying them in the pan. I don't want them like touching super close because they are going to expand a bit. Some of them I'm gonna cut a little smaller. I don't even have any consistency. I don't even know. Just you can make them whatever size you want, really. There's no right or wrong. It's a cinnamon roll. And then I'm going to take some of this that's over here and pour it just over some of this. This is not the topping yet, though. We're gonna make the topping while these are cooking. What is this doing here? Okay. And this is just to make sure we maximize on the gooiness of the cinnamon rolls, this process right here. You don't need to do this either, but it will make them way more better. And maple syrups can be some pricey stuff when you're using the high quality good stuff, which is the real stuff. So we want to make sure we're not letting any of that go to waste, because somebody somewhere worked really hard to to process all this maple syrup from tree sap. All right, so this is my little layout. Yours can be a little closer if you want, but that's it. I'm gonna throw these in the oven. So we got our oven at 350, and this is probably gonna be about 20 to 25 minutes. So I'm gonna set my timer for 20 minutes. Just to check on them. I'm gonna quickly make up the, you know what, I'll wait on the next thing, because you wanna move forward. Let's do the icing next. So, I'm also, while I'm doing the icing, I'm gonna throw, actually it's already kind of staying cool because it's cold enough in our apartment. That topping's there. Oh no. You're gonna need a food processor or a blender for this next part. That's super intense. So our icing you're going to need, while I'm getting everything ready for you, food processor or a blender, either is gonna work. Appears to be stuck to the floor. I guess I'll do it over here. So we don't have a abundance of outlets at the moment. Gotta keep our Christmas tree lit still, of course. Alright. Got the food processor set up. Next, I'm going to need a can of Great Northern beans. Just a can of white beans. I find that the Great Northern beans are the least beany. Like, I've done it with cannellini beans. And I've found that it tasted a little bit more like beans with the cannellini. Both will work. Both are good. But I just think the Great Northerns work a little bit better flavor-wise here. I usually rinse the can of beans out. And we're gonna add about a half cup of beans. Again, no, what am I doing? We're all gonna make the same amount. What did I say in the email? I don't remember, you just need a can of beans. We're freestyling now. I think we're gonna use a half cup of beans. I think that's gonna be good. There's something weird in, what's in there? What's going on in there? Okay, half cup of beans. Oh no, I wasted those. I'll clean those. Half cup of beans. Whatever. I do need to eat something soon. We're gonna need maple syrup and vanilla, salt, and coconut oil. Here's another 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. I'm not gonna even bother melting it this time. It's all gonna go in the fridge. 2 tablespoons.
I like when Bo gets sassy when he's cooking.
Sassy?
Yeah.
I think doing this while being slightly hungry helps with that. I feel myself, I said I feel like I'm like going fast. I think I'm really hungry. Like I feel like shaky a little bit. But it's good. It's good practice. I'll just eat all these cinnamon rolls for dinner. So I've got 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. I get my words right one of these days. That's why there's a video in case I say something and do something different. Next, we're going to need a teaspoon of vanilla. Perfect. And then I'm probably going to add a 1/4 cup of maple syrup to start with. So let's start with a 1/4 cup. I think that'll be a good starting point. If it's not sweet enough, I'll just add more. And then we mix it up. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Got the salt. That's too much salt. I'm just gonna take a little pinch, like that. Most of it stuck to my finger, so I'm gonna do another little one. If I can get any of it to not stick to my fingers. So that was a wet finger, three pinches, a dry finger, 1 pinch of salt. It oddly smells a little bit like coffee-like. I don't know if it's like the sweetness of something with the beans. I might be making that up, but it smells like it reminds me of coffee. And we're just gonna let that go until it gets smooth. You can stop it earlier if you don't mind a chunky icing. We prefer smooth icing.
Oh my god.
Okay. Let's taste it and see how it is. Need a tasting spoon.
Jerry says to eat a raw cinnamon roll. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I bet it's probably really good. I like this. If you find that it's too, like tastes too much, you still get a little bit of bean flavor. Add a little bit more maple syrup, about a tablespoon at a time. You don't have to process it the same amount anymore because it's already been like completely purified, hopefully, and smooth. I think this is perfect. Like it's sweet, it's good. And what I'm gonna do is stick this in the fridge to stay a little chilled. So we need a fridge thing. Oh no. And if I had planned this just a little bit better, I would have had these done already, but I got sidetracked, distracted before the show. And so, I didn't do that. I'm gonna show you how to decorate it. So, I'm gonna leave the decorating up to you all. Maybe I'll just pause it. Maybe I'll hop back on later once these are done. But I don't think you really need me anymore. But I mean, you didn't need me to begin with. But the cinnamon rolls are in. Let's take a little peek. You don't have to take a peek at them. If you have a light in your oven, you can just flip the light. Our oven light's been out since we moved in 2 years ago, so we just peek. This isn't like something you're gonna ruin though. If you like open the oven, it just might take another minute longer or two. Look at those! Wow, you gotta peek in. We need a flashlight though, because we don't have an oven light. Do we have one? Oh, here we go. We got our handy dandy bendo light. It's getting all the cool angles. So here we go. You ready?
Oh, is it lit in?
I don't think so. Look at those puffing up. They are
Yum.
fluffy looking and great. So when they are done, you'll know when they are done when they look a little bit golden brown on the outside. They're not going to get too browned. So browning comes from a couple of things in foods. Sugars will help things brown more in the oven. Butter I don't think coconut oil does really that much as butter does, because butter has like the stuff in dairy will make it brown more. Also, baking powder will make it brown, or baking soda rather makes it brown a little bit more easily. An alkaline thing, something with a higher pH than 7, like baking soda, causes things to decompose like faster, whereas an acid, something with a low pH, will actually prevent that from happening. So if you have like a dough with lemon in it, or vinegar in it, or something like that, buttermilk, those won't be brown or cook as quickly. So that's just the thing about that. And I think, do you guys have any questions? Did I leave anything out? As for them being done, if you're not seeing it get golden brown and it's been in for like 30 minutes, take a toothpick and just poke the cinnamon roll. This is another check. If you don't even want them brown, maybe you want them like softer, take a toothpick and poke it into, or a knife even, and poke it into the cinnamon roll. One of them, like your biggest one, and see if it comes out clean. If it comes out clean, it's done. If it still has some dough sticking to it, it is not done. And of course, use your judgment. If things are burning, they're probably done. Something weird might be happening if you're getting like a weird gooey toothpicky thing. Usually that happens if you have a dough that's been too wet. These doughs, because they're rolling out, these aren't going to do that. So that might happen if you're ever baking something and you have like a wet dough. So I don't know if has there been any questions? Do we have any questions there? Well, in that case, when these come out, you could just go ahead and pour your icing. This is more than enough that you'll have. Pour it over your cinnamon rolls. They're even good without the icing. And you should, I know the picture looks good when you like take the whole thing out of the oven, you just like douse the whole thing like in the pan with the icing. That's good because it looks awesome, but realistically what I prefer to do is just ice the ones I'm about to eat so that I can leave these at room temperature for a couple days and just ice them as I have them. Otherwise you'll have to throw the thing in the fridge or in the freezer, and it does have coconut oil in it, so it won't stale as easily, but it won't be the best texture. Even if you like reheat it, it'll still be a little off. So I recommend that. Hopefully you have actually I shouldn't say that. I was going to say hopefully you have a bunch of people over that you share them with, but no one should be over unless you have a really big family. But I've got 8 minutes here, so I think we'll just cut it here. I'll probably pop on maybe again in 15, 20 minutes or so just to do a little recap of everything being done. But until then, we have to show them the cool camera mount. Let's go find a mirror before we go. Is there a mirror in here?
Do you want to take it?
I'll take it. All right, camera girl. There's camera girl. You have to see I 3D printed. There it is. This is our camera mount, and I'm trying to like angle it to show you, but you can only see it I guess head on. It's pretty cool. It's just got these like 2 little rubber bands. Anyways, that's beside the point. Thank you all for watching, and from our kitchen to yours, that's a random thing to add in. Pig's gonna go get we're gonna get some cinnamon rolls to that man out there, because we're gonna have a lot of cinnamon rolls. And let me know how they are. If you haven't subscribed to the email list, go to catchefkitchen.com and sign up there. There's like a little side window to pop up that pops up and will say to subscribe to the email list. I just send out an email basically whenever we're doing a cook along with the ingredients a few days in advance. So thank you everyone for watching, and maybe I'll see you in about 15 minutes when we do a little review and taste test. Probably more like 25, but anyways, see you later. Alright. Our baking powder cinnamon rolls are done, so we're going to do a taste test. Got regular dinner going on here. I'm gonna pause that. Take these guys. We did a little makeshift thing going on here with just finding what we can. So this stuff is really like crazy. At the bottom there, when that cools, it's kind of like hard candy, that maple syrup. I don't know if anyone's gonna pop on, but here are the comparisons. So we have, just set this down. We have our yeast leavened cinnamon rolls and our baking powder leavened cinnamon rolls. So it looks like they're pretty close. The yeast ones look slightly puffier. So maybe if I had, and these sat a little bit longer, so there's two reasons this might have happened. One, the yeast ones might have had more gluten development because they've been sitting longer, and time helps aid with gluten development. And I didn't really need these at all, and I didn't really need these either, like mix them. So if I had mixed these more or added more baking powder to the mix, they might have been a little puffier. Now let's try the actual flavor of each of these alone. And then I will let you know. We'll do the actual taste test, which we've already done, as you can tell by
I had some.
those. Autumn had some, and you
It
thought
was
they were.
delightful.
She thought they were delightful. That's perfect.
Brock says they look good.
Great. Yeah, so we're gonna try right now and see how the comparison is. So let's grab one of these. So here's one. Oh, I just cooked eggplant on that. I need a new plate. Don't want it to be eggplanty. And here's one, and here's another one. I'll just grab one that's not too big. That one looks nice. No, that's the eggplant. I need a mini spatula. I guess it's best to remove these while they're still warm, because the candy kind of hardens on this a little bit. There we go. So they kind of have this hard candy bottom unintentionally, which is a nice, fun little sweet little treat. Okay, so baking powder one first. Super tender, good. Autumn. And then the other one feels a little bit softer. Honestly, it's pretty tough to tell. The baking powder ones are a little bit more dense, but honestly, flavor-wise, they're really both good. And then we could just top these off with our frosting here. I feel like I have something on my forehead. Am I good?
You're fine.
Okay. I have like dirty hands. I don't want to like knock it off. But this was our like little bean frosting thing. So just top them like that. And then just go at it. Mmm. They're so good. I mean, that one's delicious. That one's delicious. Autumn, you want a bite? She already had her.
I'm gonna have some.
She's gonna have some more, but I'm not being rude. She had some already. Don't worry, everyone. She got a bite for sure. But I hope you guys enjoy these. I hope you had fun making them tonight. And yeah, this is the second goodbye of the evening. I just wanted to pop on real quick again just to show you guys the finished product, the comparison of the baking powder versus the yeast rolls. And honestly, if I have the time and plan, I will do the yeast ones, but if not, I wouldn't not do the baking powder ones in a quick, unplanned cinnamon roll making moment. So, thank you again for watching, and see you next Sunday on Cat Chef Kitchen.